Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. I would love for you to tell me where you are in the world. It's always fun to see the global audience tuning in. Catherine's Corner I'm super excited. Today I have Ashley Hurd. Thanks for joining me, Ashley.
Thanks, Catherine. I'm so happy that
Ashley
you
is
wanted to
a
join.
lawyer or was a lawyer.
Yes.
Oh,
Well,
yeah, thank you. I think we probably had a little freeze there. So you're a lawyer, but you're on your way out of doing that. You're an HR leader. You're a founder of Manager Method and a LinkedIn Learning instructor. So again, thanks for being here. So how did you go from lawyer to focusing on managers?
I actually started my career in HR right out of college. I was an HR intern, and so I had my foothold in HR, and then I actually worked in corporate sales and for best practices firm that focused on HR. So I always loved that aspect, but I'd always had a drive to become a lawyer. And when I was a lawyer, after about 4 years of practice, I'd been an employment lawyer. I went in-house, so working directly for companies, and we served a lot of the function of a strategic HR function as well, just kind of how it was set up. And I loved it. I'd been so long been like a situational janitor, playing defense, figuring out problems. And so the ability to show how working with managers, giving proactive training could not only like minimize risk, but more
Mhm.
importantly, really have impacts on people's human lives. Like I just was all over that. And so I've been laser focused on doing that. And finally, I'm focused just on that and not on legal stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, managers are definitely such a key component to organizational success. And it's interesting how few companies really focus on giving them the tools that they really need to do that well. And we just assume they were good at their job, so they'll be a good manager, but there's so many other things for them to learn.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what are some of those things? What are some of the fundamental, qualities or skills that managers need to have to be effective?
I mean, I know first of all, I love sharing a brain with you on this, Catherine. Like I love what you put out and on Catherine's Corner. A lot of the insights you have, but so I mean, there's a laundry list, but I also like to keep it very simple and practical. So I think the number one quality that I think managers
Mhm.
need to be able to develop is asking the question of what would I want to have happen to me in this situation if I'm the person on the other end, or how would I want someone who I love very much, can be a family member, a friend, how would I want them to be treated in that situation? And
Mhm.
and that I say because a lot of times managers are just focusing on getting things done, and they're worried about the pressures they're going to face. But if you stop and take that second and think, okay, how is this going to appear? What am I not asking? If I'm on that situation, what questions would I want to ask before assumptions come in? And so I think everything from onboarding to like greeting people, making them feel like a real person, to
Mhm.
explaining practically what's expected of them, or if they're having performance issues, they're not getting it, things like that. Just talking to them in the way that you'd want to have those conversations, I think can be one very easy step that isn't always so easy for managers to take, but just taking that pause, I think, is the number one skill that I'd like to see all managers, and I mean from new like first line managers to those very seasoned senior execs.
Yeah. So basically, the people element of being a manager instead of, or in addition to, or above and beyond the skill or the tasks and the job responsibilities.
Yes. It's why I think sometimes you see, managers come into a management role and it can be absolutely like you can feel like frozen when you think like, wait, I don't these people on my team all know how to do their jobs. I should know how to do their jobs. I don't know how to do this. I feel intimidated. So I'm going to
Mhm.
deal with that by coming down hard, or I'm going to shy away, let them do their thing. But some of
Mhm.
the best managers can readily transfer industries, they can lead teams. And so knowing and valuing the skills that your teams can have, it can be so free. It's going to be freeing for everybody. Like as a
Mhm.
manager, not to feel that pressure, like you have to be the knower of all, but also for your team that they can feel respected and not be afraid to show what they can do because they're afraid of getting shot down. So I do think that can really transform everyone's work.
Yeah. That's a great point. And, coaches, there's a kind of a joke that those who can't coach, and because coaches aren't excellent basketball players, or they understand it, obviously, and they understand what the moves need to look like and who needs to be where and how to help their people, their team succeed, but they aren't necessarily the best basketball player on the planet. And so I think if we can take that position of just, I'm here to coach and help them be successful. I don't have to know how to do everything that they do. And I don't need to come down on them hard. It's about supporting them and lifting them up. Then
Right.
being a manager is a whole lot easier when you do it that way.
I agree. I mean, I know the sports analogies sometimes can be divisive in the workplace because there are a lot of people of all genders that do not like sports. But I am a huge sports fan, and for me it is apt to say, like, you know, when you look at the best coaches of all time, they often were not the stars of the court. They
Right.
are the people that they studied and they learned under others, and they then led that and had respect. And so their coaching career far surpasses what they did individually. And that all makes sense. And there's a lot of people at the tops of the corporate ladder that are like totally going nuts today at tip off for the next NCAA games right now. But
Yeah.
they use the opposite approach, and they think, well, I'm going to take my top superstar and have them teach, just like you say, and they'll be able to teach everybody, and this is going to be amazing. And then they're shocked when, you know, they're not making the championships, like their team's totally in the gutter and people are leaving. And so I do think it's apt to think about those skills being very different and why the training is so needed.
Yeah. How does a manager balance the pressure of supporting their teams and being that kind of coach, lifting them up, you know, helping them get problem solve and that kind of a thing, with organizational demands? Because as we know, unless the manager is in an environment that really functions that way and is focused on people, then managers are kind of left to function in the way that the company functions, where they may be
Yep.
more focused on tasks and things. So how do you balance that?
I mean, I think you balance it a lot by really, when you have people managers respecting, for organizations, respecting and driving that's their role. Because when you try to have too many people be like a player coach, and I swear I'm not going to like peg on these sports analogies today, but when you have this aspect of someone, to your point, is trying to do it and fill in and be another, you know, labor source, but also lead the team, it can have so many detrimental effects, because, you know, other people think, well, I can't do it as well as they can. I'll let my boss do it. My boss is paid more than me, so why am I doing that? Why am I doing this job if my boss can be doing this? But then for people managers, you're not understanding that value of, okay, what team resources do my team needs? Talking to them, working behind the scenes to make their lives easier. And so I think oftentimes it is getting a sense of, okay, what if I were going to be like if I were going to be taking a week vacation, would everything fall apart? Maybe. And for a lot of people, that right now, that is, they would fall apart. You'd feel stressed. You're like, I can't take that vacation. Like, okay, fair enough. What if your goal were to do that? What would have to happen, and what would have to step into place, and have that be your end goal, and then back into it? You know, what are things that I'm doing that nobody else knows how to do, and how could I teach them temporarily? And what are things that other people on my team are feeling like they're the only person that can do that, so they can't take the vacation? And so I like to peg to that. I will say I was not planning on doing this, but I read a book yesterday. I'll plug this. Monica Rothgary. This is a good one. Lessons from the Drive-Thru.
Okay.
This is like, I think the official launch is next week, but you can get it on Amazon. But Monica and I both are alums from Yum Brands, and I read this last night, the last 2 days, and I was nodding along with it. It's all about her being a restaurant manager at Taco Bell, but it's super applicable to every industry. And I need to shoot. I know Monica, so I'm going to shoot her a note. It was like one of the best, like very practical books. And so I'd say even in corporate. So like just a little plug, no reason for a plug. I bought it by myself on Amazon. But so anyway, this one, has a lot of like really super, that really talks exactly to those points about how to take yourself out of the work and teach your team in ways that are motivating.
I'm writing it down. Lessons
Yes.
from the Drive. It looks like I love the bright.
It's lovely. It is lovely. Here's Monica. You can see her nice face there.
Hi,
Monica. There's Monica. So I'm gonna have to send this to her so she can see it. But it really, like, I don't know. It is like a mix between a business book and a novel, and so it totally checks my boxes. But I really was like nodding along the whole time and like talking out loud on a flight yesterday. So there we are.
I love that. I'm a very active reader myself. I like to
Okay.
write in
Yes,
and highlight and star and put my notes,
totally. Then I'm like,
dog
what?
ear things. Like, here,
Exactly.
do you want to borrow my book?
You fold it all over my little dog ears, that I'm never returning a book. I wouldn't, but anyway.
Yeah.
But like that was one I love. Like I'm all about practical tips. That's why I
Me
like
too.
watching Catherine's Corner because I always come out of it with like takeaways. And
Oh, well,
so,
thanks.
yeah, and like with you and your guests, I know you're focused on that. And so I just think giving people practical lessons because for a lot of people managers watching videos, you don't have a budget. And so
Yeah.
watching videos like this is like some of the ways you can learn. So like we want to make your time worth it.
I agree wholeheartedly. I don't really need to know how you got to your theory. Just tell me what to do with it.
Same.
So let's talk about training for managers. So you probably experience this too. I know I get it a lot. For example, I get a call, hey, we have some bullying or some kind of bad behavior going on. Can you train the whole organization? And then hopefully that'll solve that problem. And we say no, because we don't want to spend your money that way.
Right.
What else could we do to problem solve? So we know that companies love to just kind of go straight to training for managers. Let's talk about that. What does an organization need to be doing in addition to some manager training to help support those managers to learn? And then my part two is if you're a manager and your company doesn't do manager training, where maybe some more resources for us?
Yeah. So, I mean, altogether, before anybody invests in training, I really think this is where it starts at the top from the leadership team. And it's a little chicken and the egg because if you have a leadership team that isn't that the people are looking at and they don't consider them leaders, then it's really hard. And that's where you see organizations leave. So I think taking that very difficult but important step to like look at your Glassdoor reviews, look if you have exit interviews, looking through those in really an objective lens and thinking about the things that we're to say if I'm going to describe the roles that we have and what are those like, and talking to your managers saying like what kind of pressures do you feel. So a lot of this is like what are areas you'd like support, and so asking managers and employees and then acting on it because the surveys happen and then
Right.
sometimes nothing happens, and that's like worse. It's like don't do anything at all if you're going to do that.
Yeah.
But it's really like what do we want, like what do we want the impact to be like, what do we want this to look like, and how is it going to be perceived and acted on by managers, by employees. And so because one aspect of it is I don't think it's enough just to train managers. Like look at your budget and how much you're spending on development for your top C-level executives. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of times it's like, oh my God, we're flying them first class to Timbuktu, literally like Timbuktu.
Yeah.
We're investing in this individual coach, and that's all. And there's plenty of reasons why individual coaching is necessary. But with that budget, if you're not then giving actual practical resource to your whole organization, then you're totally, and I know like you had a really good post on this the other day, Catherine. But so it's also for employees, like there's a lot of things that people do not learn in the workplace. And now
Mhm.
you'll see like in the civility, sometimes people see now they are replacing that with etiquette, which I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, like, okay, like they're like etiquette for being back in the office. And I'm like, well, I probably could learn something from all of those lessons, but like, please don't let that be the first place you're focusing because people are like, there's a reason that we both say that and we chuckle because when people hear that, you feel like you're treated less than like a little kid. But
Right.
if you use it and think of like, how many employees like performance reviews, how many employees are taught how to set themselves up for performance reviews, or when
Right.
you're working with people, if you have conflict in the workplace. So the best sessions that I've done that are group sessions, and all I do is like group sessions, and often it is managers. But probably
Mhm.
the best sessions I have are when I'm working with teams, like a department,
Mhm.
and it's everybody. It's the administrative assistants to the chief or whatever, the senior most executive on the team, and we talk about things and we go through, and everyone is treated like equal, and everyone's voice matters, and
Mhm.
everybody gets those resources. And so I think rather than just jump to one thing for managers, is thinking about what are we doing for all of our organization and how can we give people those tools that they need.
Yeah. Not to toot my own horn. I agree with you. And we have a client, we went through the process of helping them create core values and turning them into core competencies. And they were already building their own a new performance system that was better than what they had. And so we're helping with some training along the way too. And we got the email the other day. I'm just triple checking the collaborative performance conversations trainings for everyone, right?
Right.
Not just managers. Yes, because you can't collaborate if only one half gets the
It's true.
training.
It's
So
true.
yeah,
And people don't think, I mean, and people don't think of you don't think about that. Or you think, well, everybody knows how to do it. Like oftentimes people will say, like, why do you think companies don't invest in manager training? I said, well, companies don't invest in all sorts of training. And to your point, like it's better not to invest if you don't know what you're going to do. But
Mhm.
when you say like we want to be an organization where people work, okay, then completely agree. Like of like what are our values? What is that like? The session I do for organizations the most is like your values and how do those translate into actions and what are
Mhm.
things that you can agree on to actually make those come to life. And I just think investing in a lot of people that don't have manager in their title and they may never want that, but giving them this can help tremendously in like the isolation and the civility in the workplace. So
Yeah.
and performance because it's also important, managers roles and leaders roles are to drive performance, but doing that with empathy and care can have benefits on all aspects from engagement to retention.
Yeah. I'm thinking of a story of a former client. We had a mutual breakup because after about 5 years, I'm like, I've given you all the advice I got. There's nothing left. And there was this last piece of like, what's left is your leadership style, CEO. I've been trying to get you to see things differently, and it just wasn't happening. But the CEO, this was a company that did billable hours, he was like 110% billable, and his top manager was like 130% billable. And then because she was so billable and so good, she was on practically all the projects, and then there's these other managers who were not. And people complained all the time about how rude she was and how short she was and kind of snotty. And it was like, well, of course, she doesn't have time for your questions. She's got 130% billable hours. Plus, you want her to and so
Right.
it kind of came down to this conversation like this manager and all of your managers should be 90% billable at least, so they
Right.
have 10% of their day to manage. And of course, he didn't like that.
Well, I know, and I mean, it's like at the end of the day, we say it a little bit differently on the podcast I co-host HR Besties. We had a little bit different phrasing of it that I would not use on a LinkedIn event, but it's at the end of the day, sometimes people won't make their choices, and you do as much as you can, and you have to choose what you can influence, what you can, and I've certainly had conversations where I try to meet people where they are and understand that, um, sometimes it takes a lot, and it takes a lot. It takes like pointing that glass door view where executives are called out by name, and that can feel awful to read. But like, okay, if at the very least you're focusing on your ego, this is what it can look like in the performance you can have if you treat people just more humanely.
Yep. Yep. We have a great question.
Yeah.
I would like to hear your thoughts on mastery, autonomy, and purpose versus carrot and stick.
Wow, this is like the broad. I mean, it's certainly a broad question.
I guess for me, it's the versus mastery, autonomy, and purpose versus carrot and stick. I'd love to have you chat a little bit more on your question, but Ashley, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I actually I think that both can mean that the same thing, but the master autonomy and purpose, a big part that's missing, I think, in carrot and stick is the how and why. And
Mhm.
so in the meaning that if you give people just benefits and rewards, you can set that up. But if you don't explain to people what they're expected to do and don't take that time to have the mastery and explain, okay, this is your role, this is how it ties into the organization, and give people discretion to move things around. If it's all about that middle, that I think, and that's what's missing because there are people that you may be told, like a carrot and stick. Let's say billable hours. If you're in a billable hour, you hit the billable hours, then you're great. If you don't hit them, then you're out of here.
Mhm.
Okay, well, in the middle, you may not think about the work that you're doing, and are you able to do work efficiently? So when you're billing out that work, then they're not writing off all of your time, and then understanding this purpose. So as you work with the client, this is how you build those relationships and develop those over time. And so
Yeah.
I think a lot of that is just getting people to understand at the basics, the how and why.
I like that. Yeah, the this manager who was 130% billable or whatever it was definitely carrot and stick. It was very clear that she was the CEO's favorite person, but it was carrot stick. Work all these hours, bring us money, and you'll get money. Versus giving you manager some time to learn and grow and help drive purpose and meaning in the work that everybody's doing versus we're all just workhorses and cogs in a wheel.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're answering your question.
Yeah, I hope so.
Let us know. I'm curious. So you go into companies and you do manager training. Tell us more about that and what sorts of measurements of success do you have in place? I want to hear more about the details of the training.
Yeah. So I do. So I go into companies, but more often than not, what I really do is focus on a more scalable course. So I have a course that organizations can roll out that's like Manager 101. It's from new first line managers all the way through. I've had senior executives, and it's been run across tech companies, a large restaurant franchisee, healthcare. And so what I have is a course that people take it. And then what I've created is a toolkit for organizations to run follow-up sessions. And that's what I will customize both by industry. So for this restaurant franchisee, for example, I realized the course and it touches on like, field type environments, corporate, hybrid, and I customized the toolkit to use language that's a bit more. It's all the same substance, but it's a bit more for those type of environments. And so I'll customize that by industry, and then also for organizations. And so what that is really designed to be scalable. I mean, I have two kids who are 10 and 13, and they have a lot of stuff going on. And so I actually don't love to travel that much. I love to travel for personal things, but I intentionally am not. I like to stay in this space. Is where you'll ever see me, unless I leave into my yard. But so I wanted to create that to also be scalable, because I know, also for budgets for organizations, you may not have the budget to have someone come in. And so with that, it's been helpful to have a course and I have a resource guide that people can use that has tips and talking points. And that's been like my the vast majority of what I do, in addition to going in and running workshops largely around either virtual or in person on kind of organizational values, like I said, how those come to life. And then as people work together with broader teams, okay, what does that look like? How do we deal with conflict? That one, you tend to need tissues for that one, because it tends to, people can kind of get stuff out. But for those sessions, I always have a post-session deliverable that includes often things that people said during, I have it, different things, but then things that people said during those sessions that tend to be the best nuggets taken away. Like someone the other day, I was this like a month ago in a session had said, and I think it's quoting Luke Bryan. I think it's not Luke Bryan, but it was like, there's a reason that the windshield is bigger than the rear view mirror. And it's a song, I guess it's a song lyric. I'm totally stubbing, so apologies to you.
That's okay.
But they said that, and I'd never heard it put in that way. And we were talking about things that have happened and how to move on from those. And that was the thing that I think, like, from the takeaway, like that really stuck with the team, and everybody really appreciated that. So a lot of what I try to do is really scalable, but I do have some of those as well.
I love that. And then are you measuring kind of like the success of the training or the implementation of the things that you're teaching?
Yeah. So now I do a lot of I'll do surveying. And so now I have surveys you can deploy for before and after, also measuring with the teams, because the whole point is to have those ripple effects for organizations. And so some of those can be the best ways, I'd say, to measure it. What about you? What do you like to see from a measurement perspective?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing kind of global compre where we're doing a survey, and then we plot out what types of training topics we're doing and all sorts of other things that we might be doing as consultants to solve the problems we see in the survey. So sometimes it's just survey score, as you mentioned, improvements. And then we often meet with the leaders, like what what types of KPIs are in your mind. What would make this successful for you? And just thinking of one client recently, it was like, we get a lot of, when people get promoted, we get a lot of like, how come I wasn't promoted? You know, you're discriminating against me. So that tells us, you know, we need to focus on communication around how to get a promotion, collaborative performance conversations. And there's a lot that needs to happen to solve that problem. And then we can look back and say, okay, that hands in the air has stopped now that we've been doing that. We've got some other great questions. If you had one topic to teach managers to go from doers to leaders, what would that be? It's a great question.
So I think the biggest one for me is, and I think I put a video on LinkedIn on this morning. I did, is that it is not your gold stars, it is your teams. And so when you're a doer, and so the second I say things like, if you behind your name and on your resume would be a $, a percentage, any of those things that says, often that means that either explicitly you may be stack ranked against everybody, or implicitly you may, feel pressure to bring these things in, revenue, or whatever that looks like. That just knowing that is the mindset shift, that it isn't your individual accomplishments, it's your teams. Mm-hmm. And so really thinking about the things that you did to be successful and talking to your teams about that, but asking them that. So I'd say two things. Actually, I lied. So one topic is it really isn't your gold stars, it's your teams. And those are unlimited. So that's the best part. Mm-hmm. But it's also is asking questions that especially if you've been so successful, maybe you're number one in a bit broad group. And so you're picked to be the manager. You can feel like you need to be giving advice, and you need to, you are the manager. And so like, why would I ask questions to my colleagues? They're going to be pissed that they didn't get the job. Right. But to know, asking those questions and showing those levels of support. And even if it's literally going to ChatGPT and saying, what are ways that if I become a manager of my peers, that I can disarm them? Because I guarantee you, ChatGPT can probably come up with something better than I can in this 2 seconds on the fly. And so those are some things that I think can be helpful as well.
I also, Talita, have a very sort of crass answer as well, in that I'm in a small business now and I'm the CEO, of course. So it's different than like I'm in corporate and I've got 500 people above me. But I kind of joke with my team, the only way I'm going to get promoted is if everybody else gets promoted. And so I have to keep growing myself and more into the CEO role and less into the doing role in order to be successful. So I think kind of a simple, I don't know if crass is the right word, but just like, what can I delegate? Because otherwise I'm going to do this forever. Right. If I want to be a leader, I have to delegate and teach people. So some of it's just kind of that mindset of like, what do I want to be doing?
Right. I think it's practical. When you said crass, I was like, oh, goody, what's coming up? But then I was like, oh, I'm going to delegate. Like, that's not crass. That's perfect.
My answer was a lot more about me versus help the team grow.
No, but
you grow.
No. I think it's totally spot on. I think it really, it is. But knowing that, I think, can be a relief, because people moving into that role, like the number one things I see questions on are like, what do I do when I'm promoted to be a manager of the team? What do I do managing people older than me? And so a lot of times it's just thinking, like, just addressing this aspect and showing people that you're there to support them and make their lives easier, rather than feel like you need to like constrain and be like, this is my gavel / wand.
Yeah. So there are user managing teams and people, something I apply to my style. Give purpose, get them mastery where needed, and leave them to do their job. Got it. That makes sense. There's another book for us to all read if you haven't read Drive by Daniel Pink.
Yeah, I don't know if I've read Drive or I've definitely read things by Daniel Pink, but they may have been articles.
There's two books, Drive-Throughs and Drive. Drive through the drive-through.
Yeah, that's right. The drive. Oh my God, we've got the two. The drive is it's really the theme today.
That's the theme today. I'm going to make that my theme for the day. Everything I do is like drive forward, look in the front, not in the back.
I love that. I mean, I remember going through an exercise, and this was like before I'd really done that much of like leadership development, anything like that. Like, so a lot of people are never going to do those programs. And honestly, that's totally okay. But sometimes it's thinking about like, what are things in a job that you've had that you've liked? And frequently people may see like I'm able to actually like turn off my brain when I leave work, or turn off my work brain when I leave work.
Mhm.
But this idea of autonomy and letting people do their jobs it really can be, because it's two sides. It's one, like, giving people the tools to do it, but then also showing them that whatever decision they make, that they're not going to get in trouble afterwards, because
Right.
that's where people tend to get super constrained. And so, yeah, I like that. I like the MAP.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me
You.
today, Ashley. And again, Ashley is also a LinkedIn Learning instructor, and you can find her on LinkedIn. And tell me the website again.
Managermethod.com, or on the socials of at Manager Method, or at HR Besties Pod is my podcast with 2 other co-hosts.
Awesome. All
Thank
right.
you,
Well,
Catherine.
thank you again. And we'll see everybody next week.
Thank you so much.